This episode of EMS One-Stop is brought to you by Lexipol, the experts in policy, training, wellness support and grants assistance for first responders and government leaders. To learn more, visit lexipol.com, that's lexipol.com. Hello and welcome back to another edition of EMS One-Stop. I'm your host, Rob Lawrence. And hey, don't forget that you can now either watch this podcast or listen to it. We have both video and audio. What's the difference? Well, if you are watching, you can see some of the images that we put on the screen to help tell the story. Otherwise, if you're listening to us on the platform with which you're listening to us on, Amazon Music, etc., then we're just in audio. So you can consume the program in any which way you choose. So on to today's show. Last year, I talked about ambulances for Ukraine, and my guest then, as is my guest today, and I'd like to welcome back Chris Manson. Chris, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back.
So Chris represents Ambulances for Ukraine. Way back when, hopefully we helped you kind of get the program going, certainly spread the word, and it's grown. But before we get into that, just give us a little bit of a backstory. Take us right back to the beginning, Chris. What really motivated you to do it? And of course, how's it gone since then?
Yeah, sure. So back in February of 22, when the full-scale invasion of full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia kicked off, like probably many people, I'd watch the news every night, see what was going on. And at the time I was watching the news, my 7-year-old daughter would watch with me, and I'd try and turn the channel as quickly as I could if some disturbing images came up here or there. But my daughter, pretty sharp, she was able to pick up on what was going on, and she could sense the suffering and the misery. And and I don't know what images exactly triggered her, but at some point she just looked to me and said, "Hey Dad, is there something we can do to help the people in Ukraine?" And that was like end of February, early March. And about that time we started seeing images of some of these mass casualty events where you'd have a bus station hit by a missile or artillery or something, or a train station, and you'd see people being loaded up as quickly as possible, wounded persons, in any kind of vehicle that they could find. And oftentimes you'd see them loading them up in like a FedEx bus, or I think they're like a DHL type yellow van is what it still sticks out of my head, seeing that. It just had a red cross literally just painted on it with some red paint. And they open the doors, they start throwing victims in the back of the bus or the van to get them out of there. And it's just a bare floor. And I was thinking about that. I mean, I work in healthcare. I used to be in the fire service, and I thought, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I know they were hurting for vehicles, so kind of landed on the idea of, well, maybe we could find one ambulance, get it filled full of supplies from my employer. Like I said, I work in healthcare, and we could somehow get it over to Ukraine. And that was kind of the initial idea. And lo and behold, and I'll tell you, I've come to love the EMS community. Again, I would come from the fire side of things as a firefighter, a volunteer firefighter. But I'll tell you, my first call to it was to a local ambulance provider in Illinois, in Peoria, where I live. And I explained my crazy idea and said, "Hey, any chance you think you could help out?" And I was waiting for all kinds of excuses why they wouldn't be able to help out, or maybe like, "Oh, well, let's think about it," or whatever. And the only answer I got was, "What do you need, gas or diesel?" And it was from there, my daughter's question, and then Andrew Rands of Central AMT of Central Illinois, those two questions that really U.S. Ambulances for Ukraine was born. And we got the ambulance, we got the supplies, and after a little bit of legwork, we got that first ambulance on an airplane on March 29th, and it was off to Europe and then into Ukraine.
Wow. And I'm going to ask one of those elephant in the room questions just to get us going. Of course, when we broadcast our first meeting, one of the questions we had was, well, hang on a second, we can't get enough ambulances here in the US. Why on earth would we give them away? So would you care to re-answer that question for me, Chris?
Yeah, and I'll even expand the question to ambulances, fire engines, SUVs, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. The vehicles that I'm asking for, that I'm getting from EMS providers or fire departments or different municipalities, or even law enforcement community in the United States, these are end-of-life vehicles. So these vehicles, the ambulances that I'm sending over, oftentimes have 250,000 miles on them. They're at their end of life. I've had a few people that have driven vehicles with me. They're like, "Wow, the steering was a little loose in that one." The steering's loose in all of them. I mean, these again, they're well maintained, like any of our emergency vehicles are. They have their daily inspections, their weekly inspections, but they're at their end of their life, and so the option is these are going to be either surplused, they're going to be parted out, they're going to sit in the back field of a provider somewhere. They're going to be sold to someone that's going to try and turn it into a camper or something, or they can give them to me and I can get them over to Ukraine and I can get them into the battlefield and get them on the battlefield, and their second life, their last life, will have additional meaning and actually save some lives, and that's kind of what we're doing here.
Right, and we'll talk about on the battlefield in a minute, but just kind of advancing the story, obviously you had some great donations. I had the opportunity to be in Richmond, Virginia, was visiting my old colleagues there, and actually got to sign the side of the ambulance as it was being packaged off with a full load of generously donated stocks and supplies as well from the local hospital systems. But that was just one. So what are the stats right now? What are you up to?
Yeah, and I think at that point we might have been at 18. So March 29th we did our first one. I think when I met you, we were kind of putting together the shipment for our 8. We're getting to get to the number 18. I think we had 11 at the time. This was part of like 7 more, so we're gonna be 18. We're excited about that. I'm happy to report now we have 38 ambulances currently in Ukraine. Well, we have delivered 38 to Ukraine. We have 6 fire engines in Ukraine. And we're about ready to we're working on another shipment for July, and we have at a minimum 12 ambulances. We think we have 2 fire engines, and we have several SUVs. So we have hit our 50 ambulance mark. We think we're going to be about 8 fire engines, and we'll probably be, like I said, 5 or more SUVs.
That's tremendous. Now there's a bit of a logistical challenge here, because there's a bit of a pond called the Atlantic Ocean between us and them. Then you've got to get through mainland Europe to get into the far excesses of the European continent. So how do the logistics work? Are you just throwing them all on a plane? You can't put a quint or a fire truck or an engine or a pump or a tender on a plane. I mean, how does it work?
Well, I'll tell you.
Or can you?
For the most part, you were right. We've put 5 ambulances on aircraft. In the beginning, we had some donations that were sending a bunch of medical supplies over, and because of the need for ambulances, they made room on these 747s for some of these ambulances. These were more that Ford 350 van kind of style that it would fit in 747. After that, a lot of the ambulances we got were just too large for a 747. So, and to your question about, certain fire engines, really, we got to the point where the only kind of aircraft that would work for us would either be a US C-5, C-17, so 2 different military aircraft, or a Ukrainian Antonov 124, largest aircraft in the world. But those are far and few in between, and I've had no luck with our military. If you ever think there's some bureaucracy, try dealing with their, and I used to be in the Marines, so I say this from past experience, but now I really can say it. Try dealing with the bureaucracy of the military, trying to get someone to say, yeah, okay, you can do something like this. So, which is fine. What we did is we pivoted to roll-on, roll-off ships, and it actually has worked out quite well. I'm partnered with a group called the UA Resistance Foundation. I've also got help from the Ukrainian consulate out of Chicago. And basically, if someone donates an ambulance, an SUV, or a fire engine, we can pick it up anywhere in the United States. We get it to a couple different staging locations, either in Chicago or in Virginia. We get the vehicles prepped. The vehicle's already operational, but like we put other supplies on them, or if someone's put supplies on them, we'll make sure everything's good to go. And then we basically get it to a port on the East Coast. They get driven onto a ship. They take about 2 weeks to cross the Atlantic. They get to Hamburg, Germany. Then from there, we truck them from there to our staging location in Poland. And then I'll take a team of Americans, Polish, and Ukrainians to our staging location in Poland, which is about an hour and a half from the border. We'll meet up at the vehicles, double check them, fix anything that's broken, make sure everything's running, and we'll get it escorted to the border, and we'll drive those vehicles in. and then we just kind of crisscross Ukraine, dropping off ambulances, fire engines, and supplies, medical and fire, all along the way, all over the country. And we just basically deliver vehicles as we're going through.
But that's still quite the road drive from the port in Germany through Germany into Poland, and then eventually escorted into the Ukraine. And so you got, what is that, 1,000 miles or so?
Yeah, I mean, so like they're trucked from Hamburg to Poland, but we put like this last time I've driven fire engines now. I've done 5 trips. The last 2 trips I've driven fire engines in. And I'll tell you, those are some hard miles. I have a lot of respect for the guys that I've been on a couple strike teams, and I got to just sit in the back because I've gone on a strike team in California, and not have to worry about the driving. But after putting like 700 miles on a fire engine for a drive, sometimes there's some hard miles. But it depends on where we're going. But to where we've gone, it's 750 miles worth of driving when all's said and done.
Now, a question I asked last time, and I'll ask it again before we get into sort of into the Ukraine itself, that I kind of quipped last time, if you remember, Chris. Well, why don't you just put one of those Apple trackers on so you can keep an eye on what these vehicles are up to? And again, you had a great answer, which I'd like you to repeat for if we have any new listeners that haven't heard you speak before.
Yeah, no, we trackers are definitely a no-go. We are always concerned about being a target. The reality of it is, and this last convoy, we were 16 vehicles, and we took some steps to go ahead and minimize the risk. But the reality is the Russians during this conflict have targeted first responders. In fact, it's one of the things they like to do. They'll maybe not necessarily a convoy, but when it comes to they might shell an area, or they might cause havoc in an area with some sort of military strike, and then they'll wait for the first responders to respond, and when they do, they target them. So once you cross that border into Ukraine, you're fair game for either a drone strike or a missile strike. So we try to take all precautions that we possibly can to minimize the risk. So no trackers.
No trackers. So let's fast forward then. We've crossed the border. You've got 50 plus vehicles over there right now. How are they distributed? Because I know that you'd said before we started recording, some are with civilian emergency services, and actually some have gone to the military. So how have they been distributed?
Yeah, one of the things. So like we've got 38 ambulances, and we've got 6 fire engines, and we've got a utility vehicle over there in country right now. And before, and like I said, I've got a shipment of about 20 vehicles right now that I'm prepping for July, and it kind of demonstrates on how things work. People that I know in Ukraine, they know what I'm doing, they know what's going on. So I will literally there's a couple different ways. The military reaches out to me directly, the Ukrainian military, and says, hey, our Ministry of Defense, we've got needs. We have military units that don't have medical evacuation vehicles. Can you help us? And then also I get same thing from the fire department, the state emergency services, or other fire departments within this Ukraine. Hey, we need a fire engine. Hey, we need a chief's rig. Hey, we need an ambulance that we're going to use for something different. And then I also I get random letters and emails to Chris, the ambulance guy, and then they say, hey, I'm with this unit. This is where we're at. This is what we do. Can you help us? Or because I've worked with so many people over the course of the year, people know, and they're like, hey, this other unit needs a vehicle, or it needs an ambulance or an SUV. Can you help us? So as I'm preparing for this trip, I know where every vehicle's going already. Before, in fact, as I'm filling out my spreadsheet, I've got a couple more needs and wants that I have. So if I can get me a couple more ambulances or a couple more SUVs, or even a fire engine, I know exactly where I'm going to plug that in.
Well, we can do a call to action right at the end, Chris, so we can also use that to help along. I have a question though. So you've done the road drive. You've arrived in Ukraine at the location in which you're going to drop off and hand over the keys. What sort of a reception? I mean, describe that moment for us.
Well, I'll say this last one was really cool because again, it was our largest convoy. We had 16 vehicles. I had fire engines. We took an American flag, and we, just like you would in any city fire department, we hung an American flag off the back of that rig, and then we hung a Ukrainian flag off the other side of the rig. So as we were, towards the back where we pulling the hose off, and as we're rolling down the road, people would see this, and I'd have cars coming up honking, give me a thumbs up. People on the side of the road would just stop and look. Whenever there was a place where there's a lot of people walking around, pedestrian traffic, it would just come to a complete stop, and people would look up. Kids would smile. They'd ask to turn, they'd make the signal to kind of make the lights go or turn on the siren, and people just people got to be normal people, not in a war zone for a little bit. It was just an amazing reception. We stopped in one place in Rivne, about 5 hours inside of Ukraine, and we stayed for a night. And the next day, I was checking out the fire engines in this area. We've got armed guys with AK-47s that are patrolling it around, and I'm doing something on the engine, and a couple of kids wanted to look at it, and I offered, like any other firefighter would do at any city department or any place. Some kids walk around the fire engine. What's the first thing you want to do? Hey, you want to sit in the seat or you want to put the helmet on, right? So we put one kid in, got him out, put the second kid in, got him out. I turned around. I had 20 kids waiting to do that. I went through those 20 kids, and that 20 turned into 100. And then the entire day was basically, it felt like the entire town came out to check out these fire engines. And there were, pictures with the American flag, with the Ukrainian flag. It was just a very cheerful, positive kind of thing. One of the most heartwarming kind of things I've ever experienced. And so, that was really cool. That was a really cool experience.
Well, you've done your bit to lift the morale of that community. So kudos to you. I've seen images, and actually we'll put some if you're watching on video, you'll see some of these images on the video version of this podcast. But some vehicles stay liveried in to the organization that donated them. So you can see, X, Y, or Z ambulance service in operation, but some have actually been camouflaged and are literally at the front lines, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, so this last shipment, 9 of the 10 are going to military units. So my guess is by now, most, if not all of them, have been camoed up. If they haven't, they've at least have their reflective stickers removed. In fact, I got more pictures today of a few of the different ambulances that have, received different kind of camo, and some of it's just hey, we're painting it green, or we're painting it kind of a gray or an olive drab. And others are like, oh, it's that pixelated kind of digital kind of camo wrap. So it really just depends. But they, they are, you mentioned one of the ambulances that you signed. When I was there in Ukraine, talking with some people, and people can never verify anything because there's laws against talking about what's been destroyed and what hasn't and everything. Right. But I will tell you, the shipment that included the vehicle that you signed, I know I feel fairly confident now that several of those vehicles have been destroyed in combat. Crews have been killed, people have been wounded, and that's just the reality of what it is. Right. We knew that these vehicles are going to go for us. So, and this is the first. And I had known that, but this was the first trip that I walked away really knowing that. And so, it just underscores how needed they are, because, honestly, people I was talking to, they said, hey, you could bring us 100 ambulances and that wouldn't be enough, just because, and this is before the counteroffensive even started. So, you talk about camouflaging them, you talk about where are they going, these 12 ambulances that I've got in this next shipment, they're all going to the front line. They'll be put right into it.
And indeed, I'm an old soldier of the medical services, and as you advance to contact any conflict, then of course that evacuation chain line gets longer. And so you need, your armored vehicles at the front. You then exchange them across into soft skin / wheel vehicles to get them back to a point of evacuation, particularly, if the air situation is unfavorable or they don't have a lot of helicopters. And I'm not seeing many photographs of many helicopters flying around. So I'm guessing it's a land evacuation. And so you're right. I think you need to, think of a number and then triple it in terms of how many do you need.
Yeah. And honestly, that's why one of the things that's new about this next shipment is we've put an emphasis on SUVs, those fire chief rigs, those EMS kind of, how you might have like a paramedic kind of SUV rig, or even the law enforcement, like the kind of the law enforcement explorers that you see, like if it's a California Highway Patrol, or in my state, the Illinois State Patrol runs them. Because and in fact, even my health system, they've given me 2 Subaru Foresters all-wheel drive. So we're going to have that in the mix. And honestly, those will be the vehicles that'll be literally on the contact line, grabbing someone, throwing them in the back on a backboard, with whatever kind of wounds he or she has suffered, and then getting them to that battalion aid station where they'll receive whatever kind of stabilizing care they can get at the battalion aid station. And then from there, they'll be thrown in the back of these ambulances or a similar vehicle and then taken to a higher level of care. So that's kind of a, in the past, it's been the focus on the ambulances. The focus is still there, but I'm just expanding it a bit more to now get to those SUVs, so that as they're dealing more with an offensive kind of operation, and they're in kind of a, as they're moving forward into, maybe unimproved roads and stuff, they've got the 4-wheel drive capacity, or at least some all-wheel drive capacity to get people out back to the battalion aid stations.
Excellent. And we'll do a call to action in a second, Chris. But for everybody out there, don't forget, please like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on your iPhone via Amazon Music, look at the screen. There's a little plus or a check mark on there. Just give that a check, because what happens is it means you subscribed, and every time an episode of EMS One-Stop comes out, it'll notify you, so you won't miss an absolute episode. So please like and subscribe. Also, by all means, please leave any comments, concerns, questions, etc. In the notes in the section on the social media platform that you're listening or watching this on. So that's a little plug for EMS One-Stop. I'm talking to Chris Manson, Ambulances for Ukraine. Chris has very vividly painted the picture of the origin story, and of course, going forward to where we are now. And these vehicles are now heading literally towards the front line. We've heard, sadly, some vehicles have been lost in combat to enemy action. It's one of those features of this type of conflict, that these vehicles may well be targeted, as Chris has indicated that they are. So we need more, right, Chris? So what do you need, and when do you? I think I know when you need them, but what do you need and when do you need them?
Well, first let me just say, you had me on last time, and we had a great conversation. You've been supportive in a few different other ways, and it's helped out. I mean, it's meaningfully helped out. We've gotten vehicles because of it. So thank you for the work that you've done and for having me back. But yeah, the reality of it is, if people have got used ambulances, the only thing I ask, these things don't have to win a beauty contest. They just have to be operational. All I need an ambulance. I need, SUVs. If you're a fire chief, if you're an EMS chief, or, you're law enforcement, if you've got an SUV, an Expedition, a Tahoe, an Explorer, that type of vehicle, again, operational, I need it. If you got a fire engine, I've got fire departments. Even the military needs fire engines for their supply depots as they're being bombed. So I need those kinds of vehicles. And when do I need them? I need them as soon as, if you've got them available, I'll take them. I've got a shipment that's moving in the kind of third week in July-ish. So if I can get a few more vehicles for that shipment, great. It's a simple process. I work with a 501c3, a non-registered nonprofit, so it's good to go. You can see our stuff on Twitter at the ambulances U, the letter U. You can see that. So you can just look at the documentation, or you can see kind of what's been happening. And I promise you, the one thing I promise everyone, and I try to deliver this, and I think we have. If anyone gives me an ambulance, a fire engine, or an SUV, I will get that vehicle into the fight, unless it's supposed to go to a hospital or a fire department. But I mean, if you give me the vehicle, I will get it to where it needs to go. You will get the proof of it. You will see the pictures. And literally, as I'm talking to you right now, I'm seeing things light up on my phone from one of the fire departments that I've got fire engines in Kharkiv. I've got fire engines in Odessa. I've got fire engines at a naval base south of Odessa, and my phone's lighting up with some pictures and videos and stuff like that. And you give me a vehicle, I'll get it into the fight. And instead of, basically giving to someone that's going to turn it into a camper for a couple $1,000 or letting it rot, I'll give it a second life. It'll have a glorious life, and it'll do its thing one more time. And it'll be really, if you could see the level of appreciation that these people have when I bring these vehicles to town. I mean, I've brought Ford E350s with 300,000 miles on them. And yeah, the steering was a little loose, but it was still a great vehicle, and just an amazing vehicle. ATEC ambulance gave it to me. And man, these guys from Ukraine were just all over. They thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. And they just loved it. And because they didn't have anything before. And now they've got this vehicle. They've got a gurney, even a manual striker or Furno cot. They've got, a vehicle built to do what they need it to do. And it just, for however long that vehicle is going to be alive, it's going to be serving its purpose, and it's going to be helping people. So there's my call to action, I guess. Sorry
I was just going to come back. I seem to recall watching many videos now of, the Ukrainians seem very good at fixing anything, whether it's a T-72 tank that just pulled off the battlefield, or an old tractor that just sort of happens to be going past. That so to your point about it doesn't have to be absolutely pristine, because I've got a funny feeling they've got the right wrench to fix anything as soon as it arrives there.
Oh, let me tell you something. We drove a 75-foot snorkel, a pure snorkel in. We drove we ended up the brakes stuck. We ended up fixing that on the side of the road. We ended up slicing a tire on a Spartan fire engine. We got that taken care of and replaced on the side of a road. Yeah, we've had to jerry-rig batteries and find other batteries and do some interesting wiring. It's not an issue. So like I said, if your vehicle, it helps if your vehicle's operational and good mechanical shape to start off with. But I promise you, you don't have to worry about, geez, it's an American ambulance or American fire engine versus, European standards. You don't have to worry about that. I've seen all the fire engines. I've seen them flow water. They're all doing their thing, and they're doing great stuff. And the ambulances are doing great stuff too.
So I'll make sure this message goes out, Chris, on not only EMS One, but Fire Rescue One and Police One. So firefighters, cops, and medics, listen. If you've got a previously enjoyed fire truck, ambulance, or police cruiser, or if you're a fire chief or a battalion chief and you think your SUV could go to a new home, even if it's been previously enjoyed, believe me, Chris will love it and we'll get it there. And as Chris said, and I'm going to use this going forward, Chris, we're going to get it into the fight.
That's exactly it. I'm telling you what, that's what it's all about, is just getting these vehicles into the fight. And again, you give me your vehicle, and these vehicles do a great service in the United States. They've got a little more life in them, and they can save a few more lives. And that's what we're trying to do.
So this is my plug of how I convert the audio listeners to video watchers. If you're watching on video, you would have already seen some of the great images that Chris has given us for this episode. Or if you're listening, of course, just go back, visit EMS One. You can click on the YouTube link, and you can watch this again with all the images that Chris has given us. And I think it really enhances everything. So that's trying to do a video display through an audio channel there, Chris. But so let's try and convert our listeners to watchers in this case, because I think you've given us some really great images to look at. My final Rob ending question, Chris, is there anything I've forgotten to ask, or anything you want to tell us?
No, just like at the end of the day, the thing I'll leave everybody with is the people in America are incredibly generous. I knew, being part of the fire service, if it's fire, EMS, law enforcement, great group of people. And the one thing maybe I just leave with, besides the fact that I need these vehicles, is everyone that's in this community should be incredibly proud of the community that they're a part of. Because I'll tell you, I've seen people all across the country just rally around this at the drop of a hat, a simple phone call, an email, and just do everything they can to help out. So I just have a lot of gratitude for everyone for the support that they provided. And again, I just think everyone should just, we hear so many negative things all the time. Maybe just take a moment, and there's a lot of good people doing a lot of good things. And, the support that I've received for this effort is just, again, I think very indicative of that. So I have nothing but gratitude and appreciation for being here and talking to you, and being able to share this message with firefighters and paramedics and EMTs and law enforcement. So thanks.
So everybody, do something good for a really great cause. Contact time, Chris. How can we follow the program? How can we get in touch? And more importantly, for all you out there listening, how can you donate your appliance to Chris? And go.
Well, I'll drive my employer crazy. Why don't you easiest thing is just send me an email. You can do it at Christopher.m as in Michael.Manson at osfhealthcare.org. Or you can find me on Twitter. You can find U.S. Ambulances for Ukraine on Twitter. It's ambulances, plural, and the letter U. Ambulances U. And I'm on Twitter. And either way, you can find me, and shouldn't be a problem.
Excellent. Well, once again, Chris, I hope you come back in another 6 months' time, and we can talk about many, many more ambulances, fire trucks, cruisers, battalion chief vehicles, and all that we've managed to send down range. So for the minute, Chris, thank you so much, and continued good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
So that's my great guest, Chris Manson. Don't forget, again, like and subscribe. Make sure that you give that box a check. You can follow me always on Twitter at UKRobL1, and also I'm over on LinkedIn. You can click on the friend request there, and that way I also repost all of the stuff that we do on social media. That's been another great EMS One-Stop. I'm so pleased to have had Chris back on as my guest. And so that's it for this week. Looking forward to talking to you again really, really soon. Until then, my guest was Chris Manson. I've been Rob Lawrence. And until next time, bye for now.